Meghan Markle did take the dress. She's admitted it in another PR catastrophe for the Duchess of Delusion.
Dior doesn't just block people. When a brand that has dressed princesses, first ladies, and Hollywood royalty suddenly slams the door shut, you know something went very, very wrong.
Meghan Markle's fashion feud has now been revealed.
And somehow, Meghan Markle still acted shocked, because in her world, every designer is supposed to bow, every stylist is supposed to chase her, and every luxury brand is supposed to treat her like fashion royalty. Except one problem: the actual fashion world doesn't work on entitlement, it works on reputation. And Meghan's, well, let's just say Dior looked at the record and said, yeah, absolutely not. Because here's the truth Meghan doesn't want to hear. Status isn't something you announce, it's something you earn. And while she was busy building a brand around global humanitarian icon, the fashion industry was taking notes on something else entirely.
She has now been caught on camera wearing a $1,695 designer dress that she was once accused of stealing after a photo shoot, and it comes as top designers.
Whispers from stylists, mysteriously missing gowns, drama over borrowed dresses, and a trail of designers who felt burned and refused to touch her again. But like always, Meghan painted herself as the misunderstood victim and pointed fingers at jealous insiders and unfair treatment. Sure, because Dior, the house that dresses literal queens, apparently just woke up one day and decided to sabotage Meghan Markle for fun. No, something triggered this. And what happened behind closed doors was so embarrassing, so unfixable, that Dior quietly decided they would never collaborate with her. Not now, not ever. And the moment you hear why, it'll make perfect sense.
And it has led back to explosive allegations that she has sticky fingers with the pricey frock after wearing it in a high-profile 2022 photo shoot.
The first red flag didn't come from Meghan or the tabloids. It came from Dior's silence. For months, Meghan's PR team had been trying to secure a collaboration, a couture loan, a custom gown, anything that would tie her name to the legendary fashion house. Normally, Dior responds fast. Even if the answer is no, they decline politely to maintain industry diplomacy. But with Meghan, nothing. Emails went unanswered, calls were pushed aside, and then came the moment no publicist wants. An internal message from Dior quietly circulated across fashion reps. We do not lend, collaborate, or communicate regarding this talent. No explanation, no negotiation, just a firm strategic block. Inside the fashion world, this was massive. Dior doesn't blacklist people casually. This is the brand that handled divas, scandals, and egos for decades without cutting ties. They managed Marilyn Monroe, Princess Diana, and Jennifer Lawrence, women with global attention and strong personalities. Yet Meghan Markle, who desperately wanted to be seen as the next modern royal fashion icon, didn't even get a polite rejection. She got a professional freeze-out.
None of the items are being hawked on websites. None of the items are being given for free. The royal family pay for their clothes from trusted designers, and by the way, tend to wear them over and over again. Beloved pieces.
Behind the scenes, Paris fashion insiders weren't confused. To them, it wasn't shocking, it was predictable. A source described it bluntly: Dior protects the brand, not the celebrity. Translation: if working with someone carries risk, drama, unreliability, missing wardrobe, or negative press, Dior walks away instantly. And based on what they had already heard about Meghan, they didn't see a future. They saw a pattern that no luxury house wanted attached to their reputation. But if Dior's refusal was the warning shot, the reason behind it was the explosion. And it all started with a rumor the public wasn't meant to hear. Because once that rumor made it to Paris, everything spiraled fast. Long before Dior shut its doors, the fashion world was already whispering, not loudly, no public drama, no official statements, just quiet conversations between stylists, editors, and wardrobe directors who all seemed to be telling strangely similar stories. It always started the same way. Meghan borrowed a designer piece for a shoot or event, and then somehow the item never worked its way back to the fashion house that owned it. At first, people assumed the returns were delayed, but then deadlines passed. Reminders were ignored, and suddenly the original lender was told, she's keeping it. Wardrobe professionals don't panic over one missing outfit. Clothes get misplaced all the time in the industry. But the issue wasn't a single dress, it was frequency.
So this is because staffers on the shoot believed the former starlet allegedly walked off with several items that day without permission, including the dress she is now proudly wearing 3 years later.
A few magazines claimed they needed to reach out repeatedly just to retrieve jewelry or gowns. One stylist privately vented that Meghan insisted once something had been worn, it belonged to her image now, as if usage equaled ownership. Others defended her, saying misunderstandings happen, that assistants might have handled returns incorrectly. But every time a story popped up, designers seemed less willing to lend again. Behind closed doors, it became a running warning: if you need it back, don't send it to Meghan. Not a scandal, not a headline, just a pattern that kept repeating. And while the public never caught wind of it, industry reputation spreads quietly, silently, and fast. Still, none of these incidents set off a bomb. That moment only came when one very specific dress resurfaced years later. And that's when the whispers turned into shock. The turning point, the moment everything snapped, was the now infamous emerald green gown. Meghan wore it during a high-profile Variety magazine shoot. The dress, stunning and dramatic, wasn't a gift. It wasn't purchased. It was loaned for the shoot under strict agreement that it would be returned immediately afterward. But once filming wrapped, the gown simply disappeared. Designers and stylists waited, reminded, emailed, and eventually stopped asking to avoid confrontation. It became one more lost item in the pile of unanswered questions. Then, years later, the bomb dropped. Meghan walked into a private event wearing the exact same dress. Not a copy, not a dupe, the same gown.
There have now been multiple reports about Meghan taking this high-priced designer clothing, maybe with permission, but certainly not paying for it. Multiple reports, and she's doubled down with this threat against the New York Post, which actually I think confirms the story, because she's admitting she didn't take the dress.
Photos made their way into stylists' group chats like wildfire. Screenshots of the original Variety wardrobe list were put side by side next to the recent pictures, and the match was undeniable. That single moment triggered a wave of conversations that had been simmering quietly for years. Some stylists laughed in disbelief, others were furious. The original designer, already reluctant to speak publicly, reportedly felt humiliated that their creation was being paraded around as if it had been owned all along. Fashion houses don't mind lending, it's common. What they despise is disrespecting the agreement. The green dress became the smoking gun, not just a rumor, not an accusation. Proof that confirmed every whisper the fashion world had tried to ignore. And once those private screenshots reached the desks of higher-ups, the fallout became unstoppable. Once the green dress screenshots circulated, the fashion world reacted with brutal efficiency. No press releases, no dramatic statements, just quiet decisions made behind showroom doors. Stylists who once pitched Meghan for campaigns suddenly weren't available. Brands that typically begged celebrities to wear their newest collections stopped sending lookbooks. Emails that would have gone out automatically simply didn't. The message wasn't spoken, but it was unmistakable. Working with Meghan was now a liability. Some fashion houses began adding unusual clauses to their lending contracts: refundable deposits, mandatory sign-offs, and assistants assigned solely to track their pieces when sent to Meghan. Others rejected her requests outright because items disappeared. Behind every polite email was a subtext: not worth the risk. It didn't matter how famous she was, how many followers she had, or how headline-friendly her name might be. Designers protect their archives the way museums protect art, and once trust breaks, it doesn't rebuild.
Those clothes are being lent by top designers of the world, and I have since heard in a more recent photo shoot of Meghan's, there was also a lot of stuff that was not returned after Meghan wore it in a very high-profile photo shoot.
Group chats among stylists reportedly became blunt. If you want the piece returned, don't send it to her. One luxury brand executive summed it up harshly. Drama follows her wardrobe. Even the companies that tried to stay neutral quietly backed away to avoid getting caught in the fallout. And when Dior requested an industry background rundown on Meghan, something they rarely do, the reviews were overwhelmingly negative. Reliability is everything in couture. If a celebrity makes lenders nervous, doors close fast. At this point, Meghan wasn't dealing with whispers anymore. She was facing a full fashion industry freeze-out, and that freeze started years before anyone even connected it to her time on Suits. Long before Meghan entered the royal spotlight, wardrobe teams on the set of Suits were already noticing troubling patterns. The costume department handled expensive pieces daily: designer heels, custom blazers, luxury dresses, all meticulously cataloged and tracked. But whenever Meghan filmed scenes with certain high-value items, those were the ones most likely to go missing after production wrapped. Assistants would scramble through storage, trailers, and dry clean logs, searching for pieces that simply weren't there anymore. At first, they assumed human error, but the same scenario unfolded again and again, always with outfits Meghan favored. The real shock came later, after she left Suits. During early royal engagements, eagle-eyed crew members noticed familiar accessories and shoes, the same ones they had repeatedly logged as lost during filming. A few insiders tried to brush it off as coincidence, but others privately questioned why wardrobe from a TV show would end up being worn at highly photographed events unless it had been deliberately kept.
And he reported that Meghan, at the end of that shoot, the crew that was there was sort of surprised because she had some high-heeled shoes on that no longer seemed to be in the room for the shoot.
When asked, Meghan reportedly defended herself by claiming she didn't want clothing she had worn to be resold or misused. The crew countered with one blunt point. If that were the concern, she could simply purchase the items outright. Yet receipts never followed. It became a pattern nobody wanted to confront publicly, because calling out a rising star can destroy careers. And when she transitioned from actress to duchess, those old habits didn't disappear, they escalated. Because within the royal family, wardrobe wasn't just fashion, it was protocol. When Meghan entered the royal family, the wardrobe situation shifted from an industry annoyance to a full-scale institutional problem. Royal clothing operates under rigid protocol. Every borrowed item must be documented. Every gifted piece must be reported, and no member may exploit designer relationships for personal gain. Catherine followed the rules precisely. Meghan, however, reportedly pushed against them from the start. She preferred Hollywood-style arrangements, where brands shower celebrities with pieces and expect publicity in return, not returns. That mindset clashed immediately with palace staff, who were stunned by the volume of clothing she requested and the staggering value of the pieces she selected. Wardrobe spending skyrocketed to the point where Prince Charles, who was managing the funding at the time, requested briefings on why her fashion expenses dwarfed Catherine's. Meanwhile, multiple designers were contacting the palace asking why their gowns hadn't been sent back, creating an embarrassing paper trail that staff scrambled to manage quietly. Behind the scenes, meetings were held to explain protocol to Meghan, emphasizing the importance of transparency and accountability. Instead of de-escalating the tension, insiders say she took it as a personal insult, believing she was being singled out and restricted.
She thought it was mad that she couldn't take all of these clothes. So it's like, don't now, when you can do whatever you want, try and say that this is anything to do with what the British royal family do, because you never liked it. You never liked the fact that you couldn't take all of these free clothing. It had to be paid for, and of course it was paid for from the royal funding.
For the royal family, this wasn't simply expensive taste. It was uncontrolled fashion management with mounting consequences. The palace couldn't ignore the complaints from luxury designers forever. It was becoming a diplomatic liability, and reputational risk is taken seriously at that level. And luxury brands like Dior were paying close attention to every development, waiting to see whether the situation improved or spiraled. In the end, Dior didn't block Meghan Markle on a whim or out of jealousy. They made a calculated decision based on patterns, rumors that turned into proof, and a reputation that became too unpredictable for a luxury house to risk. The missing dresses, the resurfaced green gown, the friction with designers, the palace wardrobe crisis, it all painted a picture the fashion world couldn't ignore anymore. Meghan wanted the status of couture royalty, but couture royalty demands responsibility, professionalism, and trust. And trust is the one currency you can't buy. Maybe one day she'll repair those relationships, or maybe she'll continue blaming outsiders for what insiders call self-inflicted damage. Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, Dior closing that door sent shockwaves across the entire industry, and it's a moment Meghan will never be able to rewrite. Before you go, if you want to see what led up to this moment, the boots on the ground drama, the dress that started it all, and the brutal consequences that followed, you must binge watch my previous video. I break down every twist behind Dior blocks Meghan Markle amid shocking stolen dress scandal in incredible detail. You're watching Star Spotlight, where the truth shines brighter than the hype. Click the next video and dive straight into the chaos.